Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Practical Prepper podcast. This week we welcome Andy back to the show, and we are doing another classic newsjacking episode. We talk all things Russia, the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage, all kinds of great topics. I hope you enjoy it. All right, it is the Practical Prepper podcast. I am your host, Nick, and back by popular demand, fan favorite, guest, friend of the show, Andy is back with us. How are you today, Andy?
I'm great. Glad to be called friend of the show. I like
Absolutely. That. So our last episode, when we kind of just went into it and we were just riffing on the news, talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, it was met with a fantastic response, and we received lots of praise in the email, so we really appreciate that. So we decided to do it again, and now we're back, and we're going to attempt the same thing. It was the most downloaded show in a 7-day period that we've ever had. So pat on our own backs for that. That's pretty cool. Now we step to the line and attempt to do it again.
So is it a testament to us, or is it a testament to the fact that the world is falling off of a cliff right now?
Yeah, I can't really say that we can take any credit for it. I think it's just the world is so crazy that it's like it's sad to say, but it provides great content. Think it has zero to do with we're just the conduit.
We are
for the information.
You can't find it anywhere else. We're talking about things that nobody else wants to talk about.
That's true. That's true.
Nobody else is doing what we do, unedited.
Yeah, unedited,
One
stream
take.
of conscious.
Eh.
Yeah, no cuts. So we'll get right into it. I was emailed at some point in the last week about the Russian Navy submarine disappeared out of nowhere with a doomsday nuclear device on board called Poseidon, and now they found it. So all of that has happened
in a short period of time. So
yeah,
that Russian submarine, for everybody listening, you can Google it. You can find a bunch of articles on this. The Belgrade. It was so as we record this, last week a few things happened on the nuclear front, and some of these. Maybe we should. Yeah, let's cover this, and then we'll take it back to the Nord Stream leak. So after the Nord Stream sabotage that started leaking, then a bunch of nuclear escalations happened on the Russian front. 3 things that most of us were generally tracking, but 4 really. So the first thing was, for about publicly a 24-hour period, they lost track of this submarine. That 24 hours later, satellites found it in the Arctic. So it was lost as it put to sea, and then via whatever means, human intelligence, guys working the docks that were saying it left, et cetera, they found it 24 hours later. The news is still running to this day that it's missing and kind of driving the hype train. So
yes,
take that with a grain of salt. Along the same vein, there were reports that the Ukrainians were issuing like anti-radiation tabs to people living in Kiev rather. And that was a concern because there was the Russian military, the unit that controls the Russian military nuclear weapons. Like they have a special unit, it's called like the 12th something, I think, 12th, MOB.
Yeah.
Not entirely sure about the name, but whatever it was, there was videos and satellite imagery of trains taking at least their vehicles, maybe not nuclear weapons, but at least their vehicles into the newly, I don't know what you want to call it, emancipated, occupied version of Ukraine that like the Russians signed a paper by gunpoint. They're like, hey, you're part of Russia now.
Yeah.
So they started moving their nuclear stuff into there. So in a span of like 3 days, all of this went down, and it was right after the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage, and it has a bunch of folks very nervous, very scared. And that's fine. I mean, there's something to be scared about.
Naturally.
Like, did people start playing around with nuclear weapons? Even I'm scared. I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, the likelihood the chances that somebody's going to launch a nuclear weapon, few and far between. Yeah. However, nothing is outside of the realm of possibilities.
Yeah.
And
I read somewhere, and I guess that, depends on what source it was from, but they were saying that weapon on that submarine was like Russia's. If the U.S. and Russia were to, in some kind of far-fetched fantasy, come to blows and Russia was really, really losing a nuclear war against the United States, that was like their Hail Mary, we pulled the trigger on this, and it's like we're going to even the playing field, if not take the ground back.
And again, that's part of like the submarine force's job for any country. The Brits, the UK, us, the Russians, maybe potentially the Chinese. I'm not sure how their submarine forces are set up completely. But I mean, the job of your submarine force is to carry nuclear weapons. So if you go on Twitter and you start looking at all this open source researchers and stuff like that, they can track planes in real time. They track vehicles and trains in real time from satellite imagery, but vessels in real time through like ship traffic trackers, websites, and things like that. You can go look at that all in real time.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to find still, without a large, military presence and planes that can drop sonar buoys and things like that, and other submarines, is still a submarine.
Well, it's meant to be stealth.
Yeah.
Is it correct?
Yeah. So I mean, and the military and governments can track them a little easier just by the nature of resources that they have at their disposal. But it's the last thing that open source researchers can't track. So it's the last best thing. So the job is to hang out in the middle of nowhere. And if you lose communication with your boss, then you assume everything is going bad, and then you launch your nuclear weapons. There's recently, because of the death of the Queen and that transfer of power, there's a thing where the new king has to make a choice, or maybe it was the new female prime minister there. She has to make a choice where all the British nuclear submarines, they have this like sealed thing in their vault, and if they lose communications, they'll open this paperwork, and the paperwork either says, "Captain, it's at your discretion to launch the nukes," or "Captain, if you lose contact with us, we make you launch the nukes."
Wow.
And it's like this, it's this weird, very, very interesting thing that the Brits have to do. And I'm sure everybody has to do. But so, as far as submarines go, you track them because they're mobile nuclear weapons platforms.
Yeah. So if let's go back to the Nord Stream pipeline.
Yes.
And the issue at hand.
So then you have to take this, and I don't want to get down in the conspiracy theory weeds. However, you have to take this from a both sides angle because we don't know who did it. However, what we do know is that the 3 holes that were, blown into the Nord Stream pipeline, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Someone did it. We don't know who did it. However, it escalates the conflict that much more for NATO.
Yeah.
So the going consensus, like most likely course of action, Russia did this. I think I was on here last time talking about Russian submarine warfare and how they took out the satellites and things like that, the ground station in Sweden. But going along the same thing, Russian undersea operations, they're pretty good at it. The depth of these pipelines popping, you could have sent divers, is what I believe. As I understand, you could have sent divers, you could have sent underwater drones to go plant something, leave, blow it up later. But it's not terribly difficult for this to happen. There's rumors, there's speculation, could have been anybody.
So for anybody who doesn't know that's listening, like what is the impact of this happening? It's like people would think like, oh, they just did this. They didn't just do it to be dicks. Obviously, maybe a little bit, but it has a massive impact on the infrastructure of
So to say the
countries.
least, right? So since this conflict started, there's been back and forth about the energy crisis in Europe. The Nord Stream 2 pipeline was a Russian Gazprom pipeline that was getting piped into Germany, and it was cut off as soon as the Germans invaded Ukraine, and they were going back and forth, and NATO and the EU and everybody, they were like, listen, we don't have, prior to this, Germany shut down all of its nuclear power plants, save 3, and because of this situation of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline getting cut off, they're keeping those 3 nuclear power plants open because they're trying to go to like a super green energy, which is cool, whatever. Whatever floats your boat. France, nuclear powerhouse, they're keeping their nuclear energy because France might be one of the best creators of nuclear energy and nuclear engineering on the planet. But because there's this crunch of natural gas going into Europe, Russia has the puppet strings of everybody there. I mean, if you want to freeze to death in Europe, if it's a bad winter, here you go.
Yeah.
The UK government and the German government and the EU government has all come out and they said, listen, here's what's going to happen. You're only going to be able to charge each homeowner X amount a month, no matter what the gas price is, because they're going to have to ship in gas from the US. They're going to ship in gas from places in Africa. Like I think Nigeria is going to ship them gas as well. But because of this, they're going to have to pay an exorbitant cost. Now, part of the reason to pop the pipeline was because there might have been a possibility that they could still use the pipeline for whatever reason and just divert it somewhere else. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But so someone punched some holes in the pipeline and now it's leaking into the water around a few NATO countries. So then the NATO in response ratcheted up the pressure and they said, hey, so here's the deal. We will do anything we have to do up to and including, military power, to keep our energy security situation safe. So it's like, all right, now this brings up another thing. It used to be if you shoot a NATO soldier, then we're going to war, because NATO's a giant self-defense pact. If you mess with one of them, you mess with all of them. So now it's all right, if you mess with NATO's energy security, which is kind of like a big blanket broad term, it's like, okay, then we're going to bomb the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Like a lot of things could happen here.
Yeah, that's it's been very interesting to see it unfold. I'm sure more will come to light.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got essentially what's going to happen is you're going to see this nat gas problem wind up not bankrupting, but lack of a better term, bankrupting most of the EU, because they're already over leveraged in everything, and you're seeing that right now with UBS, Credit Suisse. You've seen it with Deutsche Bank for the last 5 years, because Deutsche Bank was essentially floating the Eurobank and the German-owned ECB, essentially the European Central Bank. But Germany's covered the EU for everything. Like Greece, all their problems, Italy, all their problems, Spain, all their problems, has been bailed out by Germany, because Germany and a few other countries are the only ones that produce anything in the EU. Everybody else is just like a tourism hub. Italy's producing the F-35 right now, which is great for them. However, that's one project. It's they need more of those. They need more production, more manufacturing, which might be possible as we shift away from China. Maybe but could you see Italians and Greeks working as hard as Chinese people? I'm not sure. Hey, love them or hate them, they work hard.
Right.
It might be a gunpoint. We don't know. But.
Yeah, I had saw something that was saying that that Nord Stream pipeline compromise could also affect the food coming out of those countries, because it's been a big talk this whole time about the Russia and Ukraine and the wheat shortage, and then without the a gas shortage on top of that.
Well, yeah. So exactly. So that the Russian wheat shortage, they negotiated some sort of agreement where it said you can ship things out of the ports in Odessa, or you can drive them into Turkey and ship them out of the ports there. They messed with the first few ships that were doing it, the Russians messed with the first few ships. But now, as I understand it, those ships are getting out and they're being able to trade on the open market. I could be wrong. They might still be messing with them. I know they stole one and sent it to Syria. The Russians literally just hijacked a ship and sent it to their people. But so the same thing goes with natural gas, right? So if I don't have, outside of heating homes, your electric grid and things like that run heavily on natural gas. For example, the state of California, primarily their grids run on natural gas.
Yeah.
It's a 60 or 70% of their grid is natural gas. So if we don't have natural gas coming into the EU from Russia, which is the number one supplier, then we don't have production. So we can't run refineries. We can't run, I don't know how to make food or process food, but we can't run the stuff that needs electricity to process the food.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So pick your favorite German cookie, or what are those things called? The eggs. They're the
Cadbury eggs.
Yeah, not Cadbury eggs. What's the ones they don't sell in the U.S. You know what I'm talking about. But anyway.
But yeah.
So pick your favorite thing like that. Nutella, I guess. I don't know. But you don't have the ability to run the machines at a high level to manufacture at the level that you used to manufacture when you had all the power you could use. Now you're going to see downtime in factories. You're going to see, automakers, we're in an auto crunch right now. Used cars, or the price of used cars are through the roof. New cars hard to find because they're just not being made fast enough. The COVID lockdown killed the supply chain. But you'll see more of that coming out of Europe. So BMWs and things like that, they just won't come off the line fast enough, because you don't have the production capabilities that you would have if your grid was 100%, if your people were 100%. I mean, if we take it down to the very micro level, from macro to micro, we go, okay, so Hans is working in the BMW manufacturer in Berlin. They used to run 24 hours a day. Now they only run 12 hours a day. And because of that, he used to work 8-hour shifts, but now they've got to rotate everybody else in. So he only works 6-hour shifts. And then when he goes home, he doesn't have enough food to eat because he has a freezing house. This will affect Hans in a real big way.
Yeah.
Because his life will change drastically if it's a cold winter.
Yeah.
And he still has to provide for his family, and his wife's going to have to go get another job, and it'll be, whatever. Bad. There's a very real likelihood that it'll be real bad. Yeah. I mean, I think today somebody came out. I don't know why they even said this. They say there's absolutely no way that Germany can avoid a recession. I'm like, I mean, we've been there. Obviously, the government has changed the definition of recession on us, which is whatever.
Could happen again.
I mean, they'll call the recession whatever they want to call it, but we all know what it is because it's on FINRA tests. Like it's a test question to get financial licenses. But 2 quarters of declining GDP, which we've had for 4 months now.
Yeah.
But they're saying there's no way Germany can avoid that, and I agree with them. It's just a matter of how long this lasts. And I would dare I say they're already there. They know they're going to be there.
Yeah. Like, what does it go? What goes into? I'm curious as to. So now that they've blown holes in the pipeline that's under pressure, underwater, how do they go about fixing this? Because they're still currently blowing gas into the ocean, correct?
It might have already been gone. They said it might take a week to go. So they just cut off. Like, so if you've got 100 foot section of pipe or 100 yards or 100 miles.
Oh, so they just let it. They just like chalk the gas up as a loss, cut that piece of pipe, and cap it.
Yeah. So essentially, like they should have a shut off valve like every 100 feet or every whatever the regulation says.
Yeah.
So if it blows up in the middle, they cut the pipe. They hit their shut off valve here, hit their shut off valve here. Everything in the middle, they just have to let it flow. But they hit the shut off valve, so it's done. But they said there was, everything that was coming up, they couldn't stop that.
Yeah. And I guess it makes sense because I don't know how you would deal with that amount of pressure coming out of a pipe under the water. There's really no, I guess it's just...
There's no easy way to get divers down there. And you have to dive inside of...
Got to be extremely dangerous, if not impossible.
And I'm sure there's a way, actually. I'm sure there's like mini subs or some kind of small submersible with robot arms, I would guess. I don't know the answer to that, but if somebody does know the answer to that, send the email so we can get some... that's a very interesting problem to have.
Yeah, I've never really put too much thought into it. All right, so we're going to switch gears completely and talk a little bit about Putin and his annexation speech that he gave, which was...
Tell me.
Pretty intense.
Tell me.
I have a little breakdown here of some stuff that he said, and I was just like...
So as I understand it, it was less about Ukraine and more about Russian unification.
Yeah. And it was like if something to this magnitude, which was to occur, if anything that was said in this speech was said in the United States, the entire country would be up. Everybody would be rioting, breaking windows. Man, there's some really... So talking about at least one of the areas where we were just talking about how they trained the nukes in, he said, "We call on Kiev regime to immediately end hostilities, end the war, and that they unleashed back in 2014 and return to the negotiating table. I want the Kiev authorities and their real masters in the West to hear me so that they remember this. People living in," and then the 4 annex, I'm not going to try and say them, "are becoming our citizens forever," is what he said.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, when I saw shots from the speech, there's people watching on big screens, there's flags flying next to them. It looked pretty...
I mean, pomp and circumstance, they're on it.
I mean...
They're on it.
Yeah, it was.
So those people, they vote. So they in quotation marks, they voted. There's a lot of reports that they voted. Some people were voting at gunpoint. Like there were soldiers in the voting booths that said, "All right, you're gonna do this right here."
Which is
dude, like in the voting booth, not even in the building, like in the booth. Like here, fill this out, put your name on it.
I don't think that people realize that this is even like seeing it in a movie or something. Like this is real life for other people on this planet.
Yeah.
Like, so, you live in America and you're like, there are things that I don't like. There are things that don't really go my way. But imagine going somewhere to vote and there's a man in the booth.
With an AK-47.
Yeah. And he tells you, put your name here and check that bubble.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next.
And you just say, okay.
Yeah.
You don't even test it.
You're not going to get on Facebook and complain about it.
No, you're not, because you're not going to make it.
No, absolutely. You're not going to make it out of the booth.
You say, "Da, comrade."
Yeah.
Da, хорошо.
It's unreal to even think about. And so when I was reading through some of these quotes, I couldn't even imagine people would go during the Trump era, things he would say, people wouldn't let go of it for months at a time.
Yeah.
They would be so upset. But I mean, if something...
But nobody's pointing a gun at their head and telling them which way to vote.
Right. Yeah. I mean, very, very different.
Putin has taken a very real stance on this.
Yeah. He said at one point he covered education and gender. And he said, "Do we really want here in our country, in Russia, instead of mom and dad, to have parent number 1 and parent number 2? Have they gone completely insane? Do we really want this drilled into our children in schools? There are supposedly genders besides men and women and children to be offered the chance to undergo sex operations. We have a different future, our own future.
So actually, you know what? That brings up a very good point. So there's a guy named Peter Zeihan, and everybody highly recommend checking him out. He's a very interesting dude.
I think we listened to a snippet from one of his Instagram posts.
Probably, yeah.
On the last one.
Yeah.
Or we talked about it.
We talked about it. I mean, he's a very interesting dude. His background is like demographics as a lens. So he's very smart. He's a college professor somewhere out west, I believe. He's written a few books, great books, but his lens is he looks at demographics. So the way he explains things, for example, in America, after World War II, the World War II, the Greatest Generation, they came home and they had a bunch of kids. So 400,000 Americans died in World War II. They came home, and because this is all him, so I'm just regurgitating badly what he said.
Yeah.
So he said because the highway system in the U.S. was actually made a lot better. The GI Bill was given to soldiers and people in the service so they could go learn skills. Then it created this network where they could live in the suburbs, have skills like engineering and chemistry and physics and things like that, and push so much innovation into society and help society grow. And there were so many of them. And they also had big families. So those families, the Greatest Generation created the baby boomers, right? So then they created so many baby boomers. And that demographic is what keeps America going. Now, the millennials, as Peter Zeihan puts it, the millennials, there are enough of us. I'm a millennial, you are too. So there are enough of us to keep things going. However, we might be the last generation where there's enough, the birth rate is high enough to sustain over like the next 20 years or something like that. Now, America is in a unique position. Yeah, no, it's actually super scary stuff.
Yeah.
America is in a unique position that other countries are not. And one of the reasons why Peter Zeihan says Russia started this invasion is because they're in a declining population state. Japan's been in a declining population state for like 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we
were just talking about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, his thing is nobody has ever, like the world, the planet Earth will never see a better time than what you did in the early 2000s. Like from 2000 to 2010, you will never see a better time. Or I'm sorry, from 2010 to 2020, you will never see a more golden age of society than that. Because
from what standpoint?
I think he's saying from all of us alive right now, we will never see a better era because there's not enough people on the planet to repopulate the workforce. Like we have to automate.
Oh, okay.
We have to automate so much just to keep the base level of stuff running. We don't have, because nobody's having as many kids anymore and things like that. So because of that, we're not putting enough people back into the workforce, which means we're not producing enough resources, which means we're not going to be able to create enough things like we were just talking about with Germany.
Yeah.
The factories can't run 24/7 if we don't have people there to do it, and we don't have the automation yet to cover
and people
that.
don't want to work.
And people don't want to work. Yeah, exactly. So people don't want to work and they don't want to have kids, which we desperately need people to have children. If you want to keep this American dream going, you need people to dig ditches, or however you want to put it.
Right.
But one of the reasons, back to the Putin piece, he goes is because he brings up is Russia has this problem and they're very acutely aware of it. The Russian way of life is on a decline. They don't have enough people to repopulate Russian generations. And mind you, he just sent 70 to 80,000 of them to their death, young men. There's females in Russia right now. Somebody go look this up. There's females in Russia and you're getting $100,000 or 100,000 rubles for every child you have. And you're getting like a presidential medal of freedom for having like 8 or 9 kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like this is becoming a thing where it's no longer, it's not just I want more land. It's turning into, at least for Russia and probably for other countries too, that have like these long storied histories, right? Like Russia's got hundreds of years of history. Maybe, go back. I don't know the history, but go back in time. Same thing in these European countries with hundreds and hundreds of years of history. That is threatened to be all wiped out because you just can't repopulate your people.
Yeah.
Like you started as a tribe, you raised it up to this giant empire-ish, like a large country. You're going to go back to a tribe because you're not having enough kids.
Yeah. And what about all of so he imposes the draft, and
so the draft,
thousands of people flee Russia then, all men.
Yeah.
So now you're also losing the capability to repopulate Russia.
Yeah, exactly. So
There.
the draft is an interesting thing because we use the term draft. It might be easier to say it's calling up the reserves because so in Russia there's a national call to service. Like if you're in high school, you graduate high school. If you're already not slated for college, then you have to do 2 years in the military or flee the country.
Oh, wow.
Which I actually had a few friends flee the country because they were like, nah, I'm good. I'll
So
pass.
if you're not like essentially going to get a scholarship,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
are doing 2 years in the military.
Exactly. And then after your 2 years in the military, you're forever in like the reserves. So this wasn't
There's no age cap there.
no.
It didn't really look like it. The photos I saw, there were some guys there that they were
like
definitely
65.
they were going to be on the front line
Well, the average
as the shield.
Russian lifespan is like 68 or something like that. They die young.
Oh, wow.
Which is part of this reason why they just don't have enough people to cover down on this generation. But it's so look at this more like calling up the reserves because all of the people that are drafted in quotation marks have served in the military at some point in time
Yeah.
for their like national call to service thing. So I mean, does it suck? Yes. Are dudes fleeing the country? Yes, definitely, because they're like, oh, Ukraine is a meat grinder.
Yeah.
These dudes, they just look on the news and Putin's like, America sent another 12 billion to Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's like, man.
Damn it.
Yeah, this thing's gonna have an American flag planted in your face. It's gonna be the last thing you see.
Yeah.
They even got somebody was telling me yesterday at the gym that's one of the UFC fighters, the Dagestani UFC fighters. He went to visit his father or something like that, and they conscripted him in the army. I don't know. I have to fact check this, but it's like, man, well, he's a dead man. That's great. He had a great career. Now he's gonna die.
Yeah, it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. Granted, we should probably not be spending all of our money in Ukraine because we're spending a lot. I saw something the other day. Somebody was like, you know what? We've given Ukraine like 40, 50 billion now. Maybe I'm not entirely sure. But it's like, okay, so it takes like overnight decisions to give them $10 billion. However, it took 6 months to give people $1,200 checks.
Yeah. If not longer. There are some people that I know that never got it.
Yeah.
Still have never got it. And then they're just like, if you call and you say that, I never got it, they're just like, well, we'll just give it to you as like a tax break. This year on your taxes, we'll just knock some off. Or we just won't take that. You're just like, well, what the hell is going on?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
They'll tax everything, but they're not taxing Ukraine.
No, they're not.
I'm curious what we're getting in return on that. I really am. You know what? They got invaded. That's terrible. That is terrible. They got invaded. People are taking their country from them. However, overtly sending them large sums of money does not take us off the target list for anybody else in the world.
But
if anything,
what?
it makes it worse.
So even though it's making it worse, that's what over the years, if you've seen anything from North Korea to Russia when this happens, obviously the man in power has to say something, has to make it seem like if you keep doing X, then we will be forced to do Y. And he has said it, but knock on wood, it's never happened.
He's said it a lot. If you
He
look
has
at-
said it a lot.
There's unclassified documents from Russia that show and it's interesting because it's like, hey, on their hit list, it goes 3-letter agency, SpaceX, and U.S. agencies. I mean, he's like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop the funding to Ukraine. Interesting piece about the funding to Ukraine at this point, because the Ukrainian counterattack and counteroffensive worked out so well. And the Russians abandoned so many pieces of hardware, like artillery, tanks, trucks, vehicles, and things like that. They abandoned them and just ran. That we should probably be funding them less because they can use all of that equipment. And there's a large piece that says a lot of the funding that we're doing is getting pushed back into Europe. Crates of AKs are getting, hey, this is for Ukraine. And it just goes back across the border into Poland.
Right.
And some dudes are out there selling them on the street,
Yeah.
I mean, there's quite a lot of that going on too.
Yeah, I always wondered it got me thinking about it more when the submarine disappeared and they're like, it's gone. They don't know where it's at, and this thing can create a nuclear tsunami is what they called it. So say, we can't find it and it shows up and it's off the coast of California and they let this thing rip on the United States. What do you think? Let's just let's just gamble here and say, what do you think the retaliation would be when something like that? Well, number one, like how immense would the damage be? Like how far would it reach inland if they detonated that?
So I don't know the answer on the specific Poseidon, but let's say they're off the coast of California, they can hit middle America. If they're in the Atlantic, they can hit middle America that way too. I mean, not to mention, so some of the new stuff there, I know that they're testing, or that everybody's testing, the Chinese as well, is hypersonic glide vehicles with nuclear capabilities. So essentially what happens is you launch it up in the high atmosphere, essentially in like space almost, like LEO, low Earth orbit. And it comes down and it pops out this thing that is, it has like little wings on it and stuff like that. And it's a nuclear weapon, but it's steerable and it goes real fast. So it goes like Mach 6. And
it's steerable.
It's steerable. So,
and
that's the steerable part is the interesting thing. So if it's super fast, we can still project where it's going to be because that's a math problem, right? If it goes X miles an hour and its heading is, if it goes this fast and here's its heading, then we can send an interceptor up fast enough where it will intercept. However, the thing is, for the Aegis system, which is a networked ship-to-shore defense, it'll intercept missiles, and there's probably a bunch of other stuff. I don't know whatever. You look it up. But the problem with the hypersonic glide vehicle is it can steer around these things, and we can't guess fast enough where it's going to be to intercept it. Now multiply that by like 10 of them, and you've got these little flying nuclear bombs that are steerable that can avoid all of our interceptors.
Yeah, that's
like it's probably still a math problem, but it's a harder math problem.
Yeah,
and it's going to take some working out. So that's the interesting thing about the new hypersonic glide vehicles and how they work and how they can get past defenses. I mean, you've seen it with North Korea. They launched one over Japan like 4 days ago, and they did it again last night.
Yeah.
It's very brazen. And North Korea, they've said forever, they're like, as soon as we can nuke the U.S., we're going to nuke the U.S. Like they've said this just like plain and simple for 25 years or something like that. They're like, as soon as we can build one that'll reach you, we're going to do this. I mean,
why wouldn't they just use the
hypersonic glide vehicles? Because
or the submarine technique.
Their submarines are still diesel submarines, and I believe we keep their submarines, diesel submarines, being quieter. But I believe that they just don't have. They're not advanced enough to do that. Their people are struggling for food. Like their engineers, the best thing their engineers have is China, because China funds a lot of North Korea, and Chinese banks. They're like really close to North Korea, help them out a lot because it's a proxy fight for us. China keeps us on our heels by having North Korea launch these missiles over Japan. I mean, I believe there's like 2 separate carrier battle groups over in that area right now. If you look on the UNCLOS reports. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on over there,
Yeah,
we're in Cold War 2.0. I don't have a frame of reference on this because, we weren't there. I imagine this is what was happening in the first Cold War. It was just every day was something new and a global event because it was just a shifting of tides.
Yeah.
I imagine it was the same thing.
That's very much like what's going on right now.
You just wake up and something new happens. It's like, oh, wait, what just happened?
It's almost like to the point where, and it could be on purpose. I mean, again, toeing the line of conspiracy, you never know, but it's like you become so desensitized to where it's like when I read that article, it's like, oh, Russian subs gone missing in the Arctic Circle, has a doomsday device on it. You're just like, yeah. I mean, it's insane to be like, okay, close window, because it's just like every single day, it's just like the, crying wolf. Like one day it will be not good.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just like it happens so often. It's like, do I put all my time and effort and resources into this? Is this the big one? Is this it? It's hard to.
It's like there's a finance, I don't know what you want to call him, a thought leader. I wouldn't even call him that.
Guru.
Personality.
Yeah.
His name's Peter Schiff. He's a gold bug. He's very pro gold, but so I guess you could say that he predicted the crash in 2007, but he did that because he predicts a crash like every 2 weeks. Like he says the same thing.
Now,
yeah. So since 2007 until now, he's been saying another crash is coming and blah, blah, blah. So he's like Chicken Little, the sky is falling.
Yeah.
But, so a broken clock is right twice a day.
Right.
It's one of those things.
He's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. So he'll be right again next time. Yeah. And he'll be, I told you. It's like, you told us for 15 years that the next crash is coming tomorrow, and it never came. It's the same thing like you're saying, you wake up, you're like, oh, okay, lost a submarine. Nuclear weapons on board, it happens all the time. The news just kind of, drives the fear. There's what you can do. What are you going to do? You just prepare yourself as best you can, prepare your family, keep things in order.
That's really all you can do. I mean, there's no there's no golden path. There's no big secret that's like, this is how you evade all disaster.
Yeah.
It's just it's not possible. But it definitely is, especially in times of like now when it's high tension, it's still frightening times, even though there are times when it's less. I really can't honestly remember times when there were less news almost. It's just like so constant anymore. But yeah, there are times when it's like, oh, I guess you can never say everything's going swimmingly or nice. But
and this is all the things we're talking about are just large set piece kinetic stuff. I mean, we haven't even touched on space or cyber or any of that stuff. I mean, add those things to the mix. You've got the Russian uptick in cyber attacks on the West going through the roof.
Yeah.
Going through the roof. The offense and defense that's getting put out there, it's incredible. There's new groups popping up every day. There's like the defense, like DoD defense contractors and things like that. In the last week, like 2 of them got popped and vice versa. I mean, we've got the Iranian riots right now, and Elon Musk said he's moving satellites over Iran to give these people internet so they can continue their riots, which is awesome. It's going to help overthrow the Ayatollah.
It's like, I know, how does he have he's kind of an outside party. So like, how does he have the power to just be like, I'm going to interfere with this outside of like government jurisdiction and just, I'm going to personally push satellites over there so they can continue.
So what he did with Ukraine when the Russians invaded, and like, I forget what some Ukrainian minister tweeted at him, hey, we have no reception, like Russians have taken out all of our communications. Elon Musk, can you help us? And he was like, I will help you, citizen.
He's Iron Man.
He's Iron Man. He totally started it
to it.
So he pushed a bunch of SpaceX satellites over there, and they're still over the top, which is why, again, SpaceX is like on the target deck for Russia as a major thing. They might as well be an extension of the U.S. in everyone else's eyes.
Yeah.
So they did that. It worked. He actually asked Congress and some other folks, I'm sure, to move satellites over Iran to help this revolt kind of continue. Since the Iranians instantly, they're like, oh, we're shutting off the internet. Oh, you can't mobilize if you can't talk to each other. So we'll shut off your internet. And then Elon Musk was like, plot twist.
And he did do this.
Yeah, it happened.
Wow.
Yeah. He got authorization from the Senate to move his little constellation of SpaceX satellites over there. Now, here's the deal. Wow. The issue is you have to have base stations to receive the downlinks. So you can Google how those base stations would potentially get into Iran.
Yeah.
Or be fabricated in Iran or things like that. However, whatever. But that's a different problem to have. But the goal is, hey, overthrow the Ayatollah. Regime change.
Wow, that's very interesting. I actually didn't know that. I hadn't heard about him doing that.
Yeah. Elon is the man's a force of nature. Also, he wants to repopulate the world by himself.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. See, listen. Elon Musk is
created
solving a lot
his
of problems.
own image.
Yeah. He says, hey, America, you have a problem with population? I'm out here trying to have 15 kids. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean,
Elon and Nick Cannon are the same person. And it's funny. If you ever see their Twitter back and forth, it's hilarious.
Yeah, I saw that his deal with buying Twitter, he agreed to the terms, correct? Like he is.
Yeah, I think yesterday they finalized. Yeah, yesterday they finalized the price and all that stuff. And it was the original price.
Yeah.
He got what he wanted out of the deal. Apollo's saying that they're not going to finance it anymore because
the people were talking about he's going to let Trump back on. People were all up in arms because he was going to allow Trump to have his Twitter account back, which I don't see what the issue is with that.
He's a free speech absolutionist. I'm all about it.
Right.
Say whatever you want to say. It's the internet.
He drives. I mean, imagine. I wish we could get like stats with the numbers on it, but imagine the amount of engagement he drives to the platform. It's got to be enormous.
So the other day he said something that was he essentially said, Russia, Ukraine, let's sit down at the negotiation table. He tweeted this out. Elon did.
Yeah.
He put like a public poll up there. That's all anybody's been talking. There's been like hundreds of reporters who have been paid thousands of dollars to write articles on his tweets.
Yeah.
Think about that. I mean, think about the money that surrounds one tweet of his and the fact that there's 100 articles, probably more, obviously, just people tweeting about it, talking about it, getting paid to write about it. It's insane.
Even when the Dogecoin thing was up, this was a completely falsified, made up thing. And then if he would say Dogecoin to the moon, it would actually go to the moon.
Exactly.
It would skyrocket.
Yeah.
This is just all nonsense.
And mind you, everybody's like, all I need is Doge to get to $1 and then I'll be rich. Hey, guess what? Guess what, guys? And somebody's gonna be like, he doesn't know anything about crypto. Plot twist. But every time you buy one Doge, 2 more are made.
Yeah. So
like,
there's no real value in it because it keeps just creating.
Yes, there is
itself.
no limited supply whatsoever, and that's why it was designed as like a meme or like a troll from the dude who designed it.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, okay, you buy 1, 2 more are created.
And it's a very bad look when the guy who created it wants literally nothing to do with it anymore. Like he created it and now it's like a bane of his existence. He's like, I wish I wasn't the guy who was famous for pioneering Dogecoin.
Yeah, because a lot of people lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what you're seeing now. The SEC went after Kim Kardashian. She flipped, snitched on everybody for her $250,000 Instagram ad. She paid like 1.6 million in fines because Gary Gensler and the SEC are like. So here's an interesting thing, and I think there's going to be some legalese after this because Gary Gensler and the SEC said that she pumped up Ethereum Max, which whatever, it's like some altcoin based on what is the Ethereum 20 token or something like that.
Yeah.
But she she advertised for it on Instagram, and he said that's a securities advertisement, and you didn't have a disclaimer for it. So he's calling this altcoin a security, which means that opens the door. If that's what the SEC is doing, that opens the door to so much more.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that's weird that she would essentially run an ad and promote something.
$250,000. She knew what she was doing. She was getting paid. She was getting a check. It was a story. Like it was literally, this is how funny Instagram is. So it was a story post on Kim Kardashian's thing, and it said first things off. It said, "This is not financial advice," and it had like,
but it is.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It said, "This is not financial advice." And then she starts talking about this Ethereum Max thing. So if it's one story post, $250,000.
Wow, you got
that's incredible. I didn't know that's what ads were. I had no idea that these people made that kind of money.
I think that's like top. That's got to be top end.
Well, I mean, it's Kim Kardashian.
Yeah. But the fact that, people got to be careful if you just imagine. So, you've got like people like us, people like the people who listen to this podcast would know right off the bat, absolutely not. I'm not trusting whatever this celebrity influencer has to say about something that involves my own personal money. But the amount of people to offset that who follow her like lost puppies, it would be like anything you say, Kim. And blow this money on that. It's terrifying. You can't have somebody like that who doesn't know what they're doing, saying to do something. It's just senseless.
So I recently was helping out some folks I know at a Swiss bank, and it's a large Swiss bank. I actually named them earlier, but they have a lot of high net worth clients, and they're older, and they've been getting on the stuff like Kim Kardashian, like their nieces and nephews will tell them about like things like the Ethereum Max. Like, grandma, you need to invest in this. And grandma will take $80,000 or $100,000 and throw at it because she's got it, and she loses it all, and it's a giant fraud.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure my dad was just telling me that about he had bought like $5,000 worth because my brother had told him to, something like that. And he was like, well, what do I do now? I'm like, well, it's
try to get your $5,000 back. I don't know.
I guess at this point, maybe you just hold out for a Hail Mary, but it's gone.
All these people who bought the NFTs thinking they're going to flip these like they're Picassos. Well, not so much.
Just like such a new wave of like the Ponzi scheme. Just it's incredible.
It is. And you're going to see, I think that's why Gary Gensler and the SEC are answering this the way that they are, because they've seen so many people just normal everyday people have fallen into this and been they just believe it at face value because people are good at marketing. They're good at selling them a bag of fake goods. Yeah. Snake oil salesmen will always be snake oil salesmen, and they're really good at it. So these, folks buy into it, and somebody else comes up and says, oh, I bought into it, you should do it too. And they're like, all right, I trust my friend. I'll do what my friend says. And I think the SEC is going to start going after people now because they've defrauded. There's been an entire like generation of wealth transfer from defrauding just everyday people out of their hard-earned money.
Yeah.
Like just scumbags on the internet saying, "Oh no, this can't fail," and then it's a pump and dump scheme, and you're out of this. There's a company, and I won't name their name because they're still under investigation, but they're on their website. They post their marketing firm is what they call themselves, but essentially they're a marketing firm designed to do pump and dumps, and they post their their victories for like this penny stock we did this NFT we did this in 3 weeks we pumped engagement X amount, and because of that it pumped X price, and it's like, oh, so somebody paid you a bunch of money, you used your social media bots or whatever you did to pump this up, somebody bought into it because they saw it on social media, maybe you had some influencers pump it, and then the original people got out, and then everybody else left holding the bag.
Burned.
Yeah. Left and right. I'm like, oh, you're proud of this. That's cute.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Yeah, just absolute scumbag behavior.
Yeah.
And what's weird, it's like, depends on how far you want to drill down into how ridiculous things get because of the internet and things. Like one of those NFT brands was getting in trouble, essentially canceled, because they were accused of using Nazi imagery. This is a made up thing that's being accused of using Nazi imagery. So something is being canceled that doesn't even exist. This is how far we've gotten.
Exactly.
This is what we're doing now.
I heard about this. The Bored Apes Yacht Club.
Yeah. And I even
good old Ryder Rips.
I looked at it just to see, like, okay, you got me. I'm intrigued now. I'll look.
Did you watch the documentary? They put together.
Is it about just the NFT itself, or it's about this specific?
It's about the Nazi thing. So Ryder Rips is the guy who is claiming this. So fun fact, he's a weird artist. He dated a female rapper for a while, and it kind of got him some fame. Dude, he's one of those just wild out there artists. Probably does a lot of drugs. I don't know. But he made a documentary, and in the documentary, they go into some weird, like, in-depth stuff about, well, this means this, and this means this, and they did this, which means this and this. And it's like, wow, man, maybe, I'm not sure, but I mean, that's pretty out there. To draw these conclusions, that's extremely out there. Meanwhile, he copied all of them and sold copies, which is interesting for like a trademark law thing. So
because they're supposed to be one of one.
Yeah, they're one of one. And that was his piece as an artist. He's like, oh, it's not one of one because I can copy this, and it's different because the Ethereum blockchain that it's built on is a different block number. So technically it's not the same. Yeah, exactly. So he's proving how fake it is. However, he might have made $5 million in the sale of this because he copied every single one of them and sold them all prior to this. So I mean, again, just stay away from all this stuff. Keep your money in other things, secure things. These ain't it.
But also, we have to put the disclaimer in there. This is not financial advice.
This is definitely not financial advice. I'm a moron.
But apparently, if you don't say that, they could come knocking. They go, hey, the Practical Prepper podcast told me.
Kim Kardashian said this is not financial advice, and they still got her.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
I feel like we need to, do your own research. I don't know what to tell you, but don't listen to me.
Rely on yourself.
Yeah.
As always. All right, so let's it's not too much of a shift, but obviously everybody is seeing the impact of the gas prices increasing, going back up again, which is fantastic. But can you talk a little bit about, or how much do you know about them cutting the production by 2 million barrels a day?
So the president just released, or he said he's going to release another, 10 million from the Strategic Oil Reserve yesterday? This is so frustrating. So gas is going to go back up. We're going into the energy crisis. We know that. The administration doesn't want to issue any new drilling rights. The action, as I understand it, I am good friends with some really smart OG guys, but I am not one of them by a long shot. So as I understand it, they're not going to allow, or they're few and far between are issuing new drilling rights. The action that the administration is taking is telling the oil companies to charge less for this. That's the action. So the action is, hey, you're not allowed to drill anything new. I still don't want you to have long-term longevity because I want green energy, which, hey, I'm all about it long-term. Cool. There's just got to be a healthy balance. So the administration is doing this, releasing like another 10 million from the strategic petroleum reserves, which we're not filling back up anytime soon. So if something really bad does happen, we're going to be in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like this, it's interesting. So this is, I mean, and everybody listening, let's hear comments on this, because it's like they're going to force you to do the green energy thing. They're going to force oil companies not out of business. Oil companies will pivot into something else.
Yeah.
They'll try to make it as green as possible. They'll do carbon offsets like they used to. Something like that. I'm not sure. But they're going to force people into having this green energy thing because they're just not going to allow it anymore. It's going to suck. It's going to be bad for a minute. Like,
weren't we just talking about in New York, they have to stop producing cars?
Yeah, in California.
And California
and
by like 2025.
No, 2035.
Yeah.
And California also did something where you're not allowed to have like gas grills now or something.
Really?
I saw
as of now?
Oh, no. I forget what it was. It might have been in the future, but I'm not entirely sure what the rule was. But at any rate, we're going to go into a bad time before we get out of it, go into a good time.
Yeah. I mean, I had read something somewhere that was like, yeah, gas prices, you can already see they're way up again. And this is not the end of that. Like, it's not like, well, they're just going to kind of go back up for a little bit. It's not going to be that bad. This is
here we go. Hold on.
The beginning.
So a new proposal passed by the California Air Resource Board cements the state as the first to ban natural gas heaters and furnaces.
Wow.
Was passed unanimously. Aims to phase out sales of the space heater and water heater appliances by 2030. So you won't be stuck, with a dependency on natural gas. I don't know what the alternative is, just electric. I'm not sure.
I guess.
But hey, California, more, rules for thee, not for me. I'm sure Gavin Newsom he'll keep his.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to say no to him. Yeah. But that's kind of where we are.
Yeah.
The recession that we're in right now is only going to get worse. The energy crisis that we're in right now is only going to get worse. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I think, so here's my, maybe I try to make a prediction every so often. So here's the prediction. The energy crisis will get worse for longer. The recession will be worse for longer. The first thing to end will probably be the Russian occupation of Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, and this is, somebody should write their congressman, and they should write all of their congressmen since 1960 or 1950. Imagine how much money, we were talking about how much money is just spent on marketing and things like that. Imagine how much money was paid to think tanks and really smart people that told us the Russians were like this big, scary monster enemy.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, man, no, you have to spend so much money on defending against Russia. Russia. They're since 1960 until a year ago.
Imagine how easy that was without the internet.
Yeah.
Just to push that agenda and being like,
the Red Scare.
Yeah, they're the ones. You don't want them to come knocking. So
how many movies where the Russians are the enemies and they're like, man, they might take us this time, guys.
Yeah.
They can't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. Like, dudes are getting planted.
All their guys are leaving, too. So the guys that they do have,
they don't want to be there.
Get crushed.
Yeah.
The guys that they are enlisting, leaving.
Dying.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, yeah. So the big scary bear. I want all of our money back that we spent on really smart people to tell us this is the way, man. They're the worst. They're the worst ever. I want that money back.
Yeah, we
were kind of cheated. The Cold War 2.0.
Yeah, this is technically this episode could be Cold War 2.1.
2.1, yeah.
Since last time was its inception, and this is just a
so I'm sticking to that
extension.
So I was telling you this, and I'm sticking to this. So I was talking to a friend who, by all strategies, he knows exactly what he's talking about, and he's a very smart individual. But he was saying, man, we're in World War III. And I said, be careful with saying that because, World War I, millions of people died. World War II, at least 1 million people died. I'm sure more. The Holocaust, all of those things, 6 million there. So, but like all of these things, millions of people died. We're not there yet just for a sheer loss of human life. I think it's safe to say Cold War 2.0.
Yeah.
World War III might be a little stretch. Not saying we're not there yet. Could happen tomorrow. Lose another nuclear submarine, we don't know.
Yeah. I wonder what it qualifies it as a war.
Oh, as a world war?
Yeah.
I mean,
are there parameters that have to be hit, or it's just like, obviously this is a major event. This is definitely World
Yeah,
War.
I assume-
Because World War III to me gets thrown around so much. I mean, you've heard it plenty of times. Like, is this World War III? This is it. This is World War III. People are like, we already had World War III. You know what? It's like,
Well, I think it actually needs to be a world at war. Like
Yeah.
more than just the Ukraine and Russia need to be at war with each other.
yeah. I mean, I guess we could see that pretty much.
Yeah, we could. If
At
NATO,
any
if
time.
if something happens and NATO, NATO has to go to war, then that means if NATO goes to war, then that definitely means we're in World War III.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That would not be.
If China invades Taiwan and we have to enact that self-defense pact that we have with Taiwan, that is World War III.
Yeah.
Would it be World War III if no other countries are doing it? It's just us and Taiwan.
Well,
I don't know who else would
yeah.
help. Japan might help. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's like some political stuff that I'm just not tracking on this of a coalition of willing nations. I'm not sure about, but
Yeah.
it might be. I'd assume it would be because it would be big. It would be big. It'd be huge.
Yeah, I mean, us going to do battle with anybody on a serious front
Yeah, conventional warfare would be nuts.
is pretty World War-esque, I would say.
I'd agree.
But I guess they didn't really call the war on terrorism. That was not considered.
No, not at all. That was just like unconventional warfare at its finest for the war on terrorism piece, not the Afghanistan piece and the Iraq piece. That was, I guess you would call it like a mix of conventional, unconventional. Bad guys weren't wearing uniforms, so
Right.
you're fighting an insurgency, you're nation building, you're doing stuff like that. But yeah. But if we got into a conventional fight with China, that'd be nuts.
Yeah. No, not good. Well, I actually had a list of a bunch of other topics to talk about, but we're running this one pretty long, so I think we'll wrap it up, and then
We'll see if we should do it again.
we'll see if we should do it again. Definitely let us know. Like last time, we really appreciated it. Got lots of comments, lots of emails, topics people wanted us to talk about. This is a little bit different because it's only relevant for the time being, especially with how the news cycle is now. Next week, this could be completely irrelevant, but it's just it's a reason to keep doing it, and it seems like you guys like it, and really appreciate that. So Andy, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming out, and we'll do it again.
Awesome. Thank you. I love being here.
All right, take care, guys. All right, everyone, that's going to do it. Another fantastic episode. Thank you, Andy, for joining us. What do you guys think? Is Russia really a threat? Feel free to email in or comment and let us know. And as always, through our friends at Valley Food Storage, if you use the code PRACTICAL15 at checkout, you can take 15% off of your next order. We've got tons of new great products. We've got bug out bags. We've got different versions of protein. We've got sausage, chicken, beef, and all kinds of different sizes that you guys have been asking for. Lots of great stuff. So use the code PRACTICAL15 at checkout and take 15% off your next order, and we'll see you guys next time.